here to talk about what happens when people don't understand your brand. On the Impact Brand Doctor podcast with Rich Kozak, check out these rich strategy nuggets that you can use right now. This is the Brand Doctor podcast, where we positively uplift possibilities for personal and business brands. And we give you straight talk you can trust. You probably need clarity for your brand, or maybe you feel stuck at the starting gate to reach the next level of your brand. Well, you are welcome to bring your vision and your challenges right here to the Brand Doctor podcast. Today, we're lifting up the brand journey of Frank Lehane. Frank is unique. He is the founder of Safe Savings Options, Using Your Money's Power, author of the book From Broke to Six Figures, Steps to Success in Business and Life. Frank, I see a copy of it right behind your head there. And speaker to people who are dedicated savers about what they do not know that they need to know. And Frank is a saver's wealth advocate. Frank Lehane, I know that many of our listeners' businesses and lives actually will be benefited by what they hear today on this show. So welcome.
Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome. It's so good having you here. Look, after that introduction, I'm fascinated by the language of your brand. And I do want to know why you chose to write a book entitled From Broke to Six Figures, but I think that'll come up later in our interview. I'm going to ask you a bigger question. What is your vision of the impact you clearly see having on others when your brand is well understood and thriving? Frank, what's your vision?
Well, my vision is really simple in that if people have a feeling of safety, meaning they're talking to a safe person, then not only will they reveal things that is the truth about where they're at, but they're going to actually feel free to take action that they want to take. And that really is the deeper vision and why I called my business Safe Savings Options. Yeah.
People need that. It's sometimes difficult in a world where a lot of people are selling a lot of stuff, particularly when it comes to money in the financial industry. So that's quite a blessing. Yeah. When did that vision of giving people a safe place and education, because I know you stand for education that they haven't had about things they need to know but they don't know, when did that vision become real for you of serving savers at a much higher level?
Well, over the past 27 years.
A moment or a story that you can share with us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course, I got inklings along the way in the 27 years that I've been in my business. But there's a difference between what I was trained to be and what my heart was leading me to serve people. And people just were not included in this whole idea of their finances. It was something that was told to them and prescribed to them. But I really wanted to invite them in to actually participate in this and become unafraid and stop looking at their finances like some kind of a big boogeyman, kind of like a scary monster. And so that's really what I envisioned. And it really led to my thoughts of having a book in the first place. I said to myself years ago, one of these days, I'd like to write a book that has these things that I've learned that I could really show people behind the curtain and give these things as gifts to people that really need to know what's going on. So they're not just informed, but they're empowered.
Right. Good for you. You mentioned that I think you called it the Tony story that was a bit of a turning point for you, or at least an aha moment. Can you share that with us quickly so that we have that example, and I'll play off of that and give people a strategy nugget and an action from it. Can you tell us the Tony and his daughter's story?
Yeah. I mean, if you could use the terminology, that's when the rubber hit the road. Because years and years ago, we're talking almost over 2 decades ago, Tony was a fairly successful printer in the town where I lived, and Tony liked to have a good time, but he came up the rough way. And he was in charge of his two dear little girls, his daughters, and Tony felt he could trust me. We got to know each other, and he told me the thing that was really on his heart that he could give as a gift to his daughters was to make sure that they could go to college, because he never went to college. And he wanted to give that to them and make sure that that would take place, because he worked hard for his money, he worked hard for his business, and that's what he wanted to do. And I took that to heart. And what really happened is that we put together a plan that Tony really enjoyed. He was comfortable with it, but Tony didn't live to see that plan come to fruition.
Oh my.
But what had happened is because of the plan and the care that was taken to put it together based on what Tony's heart wanted, what he really was living for, if you will, did come to pass. Even though Tony wasn't there to see that happen, the daughters, now young women, years later, did have that opportunity to now not just afford college, but have it be something that they could pursue without having to sacrifice things like time freedom. They could devote their time to actually succeeding at college and moving ahead with their lives in a way that Tony in his early life wasn't able to do. But even though he wasn't there to see it, this was coming.
Thank you, Frank. I'm going to expand on that. So as you looked at Tony, he was diligent. Yeah. He was determined. He had a vision, and many people get to live to see what their vision and their determination creates if they're diligent savers. Tony did not, but you saw in Tony a type of a person, qualities that determined and diligent saver, vision of what they wanted to create, hoping for others, something for other people's lives. He was not about himself. He was about his daughters. And I'm just going to point out to everybody listening here, there is something powerful when you're doing branding about asking your heart whom you clearly see impacting when your brand thrives. Frank clearly saw impacting and sees impacting those who are diligently saving, in many cases saving over $100 or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because they're very successful. But there's things about them that they need an advocate. They need someone they can trust. And Frank chose to be that person, and he envisions that there's something powerful. I'm going to give you an action. Write this down for your own branding. Ask your heart, and I do not mean your head. Look, we can all make lists, right, Frank? Right. We can make lists. Oh yeah, I could do that for a baseball player. Oh, you know what? Hey, I could do that for a teacher. Yeah. Ask your heart whom you clearly see in your mind's eye impacting, and you really want to impact. When your brand thrives, write that down, and write down the highest level impacts you can imagine making. Maybe they don't all get there, but write down those impacts and do it from your heart, not from your head. You don't need 15. 3 is fine. 6 is fine. You don't need 15. And here's why. You can define the brand you must become based on those clear definitions of the who you really want to help, and you can impact their lives, and the impacts that you literally clearly see, and the highest level impacts. It will drive the creation of a brand so powerful that you can never get off track. Everything your brand says and does aligns. Frank, you've experienced a little bit of that, right?
Absolutely.
I have a question. When you were creating Safe Savings Options, your special company that you created, and the role that you play as a Savers Wealth advocate, what did you struggle about your brand?
Well, a couple of things, Rich. Well, something you just mentioned here is that what really hit me hard was, if I wasn't clear, you just had people write down 3 people, but if you're not clear about your message, not only will you lose out, but who you're trying to impact will ultimately lose out. So being clear about you. And the other thing I wanted to say is that it has to come from your heart. In other words, what you helped me with, Rich, is actually to put together and be able to articulate in strong messages what was already in my heart, what I had gained throughout my entire life, and who Frank was in his life, and who he really wanted to be. And by working with you, it really came out. I was able to put it into strong messages that would actually appeal to the people that I really wanted to attract. And really,
as I remember and as I watched, one of the struggles was you're a man of faith, but your business was financial. And it's like, how do you combine those two? And can you actually be authentically you when you want to do business with a servant's heart? But that sounds like weak sauce when it comes to money and financial services. And what you learned was you literally combined the two. And now the brand speaks with a voice that's authentically you. You have another book planned that literally speaks to your purpose, that deals with doing business with a servant's heart. That's marvelous. Oh, you mentioned a while back a really small client whom you chose to help with a servant's heart. I love that story. You just were you, and it wasn't a big thing, and you served them, you educate. Can you tell that story really quickly and how that played out? Thanks.
Yeah, I love Jim and Mary. And Jim and Mary, I'm in their Bible study. I've known them for over 20 years. And they came to me and they said, look, we really get that you want to help us understand. And they were not wealthy by any stretch of the society's imaginations. And they said, look, we have this small amount in our IRA and we'd like you to show us and teach us. And we want to know. And I said, wow, this was wonderful. And they were so diligent and so wanting to know. And they told me, so one day when we come into wealth that we're expecting, we're going to call you. And of course, we can hear that many different ways, but I helped them so well, and they knew that I was for them with so little, that there sometime later they did come. Mary pulled me aside one day after a Bible study, and she said, Frank, remember that conversation we had some time ago? Well, we've come into an enormous inheritance.
Oh boy.
And we already know you, we love you, we trust you, we know you've got our backs. We want you to help us.
I love that story.
And that was able to take me from a level to a much, much higher level. And its confidence is not even really, doesn't really explain it. It's more of a capability and an ability to be able to impact any number of people. It doesn't matter where they are in their life, whether they have much or very little, but to actually do that.
I want to point out, Frank, the branding strategy nugget here, that everybody listen. Frank crafts language and creates values using language that shares his heart. On his about page of his website, he talks about restewarding legacy. On his logo, he talks about educating, protecting, stewarding. His positioning message, a saver's wealth advocate. All of those things reflect his servant's heart and the way he's chosen to serve people at a higher level. So here's the strategy nugget. I want you to write this down: craft language and create values. Whatever it is for you, a webinar, a course, a book like Frank, a mastermind, whatever you're doing that allows the heart of the brand, your heart, to be transparently present, and it will attract the people you really want to impact. Frank, thank you for being here. This was wonderful. Everyone, in this episode of The Brand Doctor, we've lifted up the brand journey of Frank Lehane and his book, From Broke to Six Figures, Steps to Success in Business and Life. You gained insight into asking your heart for the impacts it clearly sees your brand making on others when it thrives, and insight into naming the values your brand creates, what you create, groups, trainings, courses, books, events, whatever it is, that reflects the heart of your brand. You'll get contact info for our guest today and the show notes so you can take advantage of all his brand has to offer. And even more information is available by emailing us directly to our email address, rich@richbrands.org. The Brand Doctor podcast is dedicated to bring you strategies and actions to take your brand to its next level. So from our heart to yours, we encourage you to subscribe to the Brand Doctor podcast and check out the other episodes for strategy nuggets and actions you can take right now. We'll speak with you again in our next episode. And remember, now is the time to define the brand you will become. See ya.